You got to catch Joe stomping around in the mud. He's been enjoying this so much.
I'm just showing off my brand new rain boots.
I know, he's like a little kid out here with his rain boots on. Yay,
Yep.
This is fun! He's like stomping in the mud. I'm like, can you please stop stomping in the mud everywhere? But for anyone that has ever moved, renovated a house, taken on new land, anything like that, you can understand exactly what's going on out here. Number one, it rains in Taft. That's just a part of, that's why we can grow well here. The dirt is challenging, but we get lots of rain. That's kind of where we are with the stuff out here. But that being said, we got over the last few days about 10 inches, maybe more than 10 inches of rain. Is that what our weather meter said?
It was right at 10, and I don't think we got much rain yesterday.
Got it. So 10 inches of rain, we'll call it that. And we can see now where water is settling. We can see where we've moved water because we've done some different things and put dirt in different places. Anywhere we move dirt in, even if it's not flooded anymore, it's a big, goopy, soggy mess.
Yeah, right over by that chicken coop is at the
it's
door.
all very mucky, soft mud. Anywhere we're working on projects where we're moving dirt and running lines, electricity and water and all of those types of things, those are all a big, gloopy, soggy mess. So these are the types of solutions that we would work to jump into very quickly and put some mulch in place. We're looking for mulch. One of the challenges of getting mulch after a flood or during a flood is that the people that move mulch with that do tree trimming and things like that have big trucks. And in fact, outside of going directly to the dump yard and paying to dump, maybe even the dump yard doesn't have a specific space that they can do it right now because it gets so muddy and gloopy, and if their trucks are too heavy, they can't get in and get out. And so that's some of the challenges. So I'm working with a local tree trimmer on this side of the bridge over here to see where he can dump stuff safely here, because that will benefit him and me very much. And then what we'll do is some of the first places will be the footpaths that we're using to get around, the gates, anywhere that we have definitely standing water, but if the first would be the footpaths, the gates, and all the way up to and in the chicken coop as much as we can. It's going to take a lot to get this chicken coop back to what we had, or this chicken run back to what we had in town.
Yeah, 6 to 8 inches.
Yeah, so it's going to take a lot of mulch. And the good thing about that is that we did just, my parents did just pick up a wood chipper.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but the wood chipper needs some work.
New toys.
So we got the wood chipper, and if we can get it functioning and working well, then we will have our own option, as well as getting dumps still when we can, of just harvesting our own wood, basically. And that's very important to me. And a part of this whole thing, I actually told Joe yesterday, what was it that you said, should I throw this away? Is this good, bad? Oh, corks.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, this is a good example. I had some wine corks, and he goes, why are we still keeping these? And I said, because I put them in the garden. I said, the plastic ones, they go in the trash. But the cork ones, that is a resource, which had me saying, if it is carbon or mineral, I want it. Because it's a very important part of life. You never want to let that stuff go off your land if you can hold on to it. That's any kind of wood, cork, carbon, sugar, basically, the things that things need to eat. And then minerals would be the things we need to keep us strong and healthy. So all of the different types of metals and things like that are going to help us with machines and all of the work that we're doing with that. So that's just a little side note. Another side note that I did want to mention.
Sandy says all she's hearing is just drink more wine.
Drink wine. It's delicious. Drink more wine. That's affirmative. Go for it. And my favorite is actually the Josh. It's a cab, and it has a very nice reusable cork. So go for that one.
No, don't go for that one, because then I can't find it on the shelf.
I know. We made a marketing skyrocket happen. All of a sudden, they were like, Corpus Christi loves Josh. Or I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm drinking a little too much, maybe. Okay, I wanted to get to a statement that another thing Joe said last night.
That's not true, by the way.
He brought in a couple of eggs, because now tell us what the count is.
We brought 6 over from Corpus Christi. We got a rooster like day 2 that we had our new coop and run working, and then we had one of your buddies gave us 5 laying hens, production hens that they just couldn't have at their home anymore.
Right, and they began laying immediately.
So we're up to 12.
We're up to 12 chickens, but in terms of how many eggs we're producing.
Well, we were getting when we moved out of Corpus Christi, we were getting 2 a day. Now we're up to 6, and I think we got 7 yesterday, but I lost count.
Got it. So we're getting back into production with our own hens because of the temperature.
It's a dozen eggs every 2 days.
Adding to it, we will be getting that. Now, our hens aren't exactly laying in all the right places yet because we got a lot going on. Number one, they're new. That second flock that got brought in didn't get trapped like the first flock did. However, I've noticed that our first flock is pretty darn smart. I'll tell you about that when we get out to one of the gardens where the chicken tractor is at. But I think we've got most of them, some of them still laying out. They like to lay in a little corner over there, so we're keeping an eye out for that clutch that's starting to happen over there. But they are beginning to lay more and more in the nesting box. And yesterday, Joe brought in an egg that was like completely covered in mud, and he said, this was in the nesting box like this. I guess their undercarriages of their bodies are just so muddy.
Yeah, because they'll lay an egg and then they'll sit on it for a few minutes.
Right.
And
right.
I mean,
right.
It's just mud in their coop. So.
But I bring that up, and I bring that up to Joe because Joe's greatest experience with chickens is going to be that backyard experience. And most of our eggs came out of that coop extremely clean. I mean, there might be a little bit, and if we left them a few days instead of picking them up every day, then we'd see a little poop or something on them that we have to clean. But generally, our run filled with 6 to 8 inches of that nice mulch wasn't a muddy mess. And so our chickens didn't become a muddy mess, and then their eggs didn't become a muddy mess. So that was a huge, huge, huge part, and that will be a huge part of us wanting to get this as clean and in good shape as possible because our eggs will be clean, and then I don't have to wash the eggs when I get them to not only my family but your families as well because they stay safer and they stay cleaner when they haven't been washed.
Every time I come out to interact with the chickens, they look at me angry. They're tapping their fingers saying, can you please dry us out?
This is what
we
is
don't
this?
like this at all.
And the ones that came from the old house that know him, they're like, what the hell have you done?
Right.
This is not, we do not like.
I appreciate the more roaming space. Thank you.
Yeah.
Our home is bigger.
Yes.
But we're filthy.
This is gross. So we just wanted to show you a little bit about that. There was a couple of other things that I wanted to show you over here on this side of the house too. Projects that we've been working on. One thing I will tell you is while I'm cruising around in this moist ground, I am looking down at what's growing. That way I get an idea of what's germinating, what's going to come up as a weed, what's going to be a problem. I wish I had left at least one to pull it out for you guys. But there is an invasive weed that is
That's a scientific name?
Yes, it's a nightshade. Thank you. Sorry about that. That's what happens when you're live and you forget something. It's a nightshade variety, but it's actually got a lot of thorns on it. Nightshade would be your eggplants, your tomatoes, that datura plant that I like with the big moonflowers on it. Those are all nightshades. So it looks like that, or a potato plant. It looks like that kind of plant. And it even puts a flower on that looks just like an eggplant. It's a purple flower with a little yellow stem in the center of it. And when you see those weeds around, you'll actually see them oftentimes in places where there's a lot of cattle, and they're noxious. Just like a lot, we know that nightshades tend to be noxious. Even the tomatoes and the eggplants and things like that can be noxious for some people. So this one, it will make your animals sick, and it also has this really thorny stuff on it. So when you try to just pull it out of the ground, it's a pain. And when it gets big and gets to the point of putting on flowers and gets putting on these little yellow berries that are the noxious part, they're very, very hard to get out of the ground. This time of year, when the ground is softening and you still have a little bit of daylight that goes into before we have the time change that's coming very fast, would be the best time to pull out those weeds that you need to get rid of, and you need to make sure they don't seed again in your areas. So those are the things I'm looking for. But then I'm also looking for where we've just kind of thrown out seeds and where things are coming up. Because I will notice every once in a while, oh, there's a zinnia coming up down there. How nice is that? Now this is a project I've been working on for a few weeks. If it had rained in Nicholas the way it rained over the last couple of days, this actually would be going a lot faster. It didn't get as moist as I had hoped that I could get it before I could get it covered, but I definitely needed to get it covered. But now all of this rain that's come down, it's just been, a soggy mess, but it's been covered. So all it's doing now is just sucking any water in. But I did want to show you guys what was going on in here, and one of the things that I love the most is pulling it right open immediately and seeing all of that mycorrhizal fungi.
Is that the white? It looks like a cotton.
Yes,
or
mycelium. That's exactly. So I would say this immediately. Anybody that cares, that would show up at a live to watch me garden, watch Fantastic Fungi. You have to. It's going to be a huge help for understanding soil health, your own immunity, your own health, all the things that I've talked about all of this time about mycorrhizal fungi and the mycelium and the roads and the mapping system and all of that. You'll begin to understand better what I've been explaining and then what this all is going on here.
I think you said that that's on Netflix?
It's on Netflix, yeah. Fantastic Fungi. It's a fantastic show. I had so much fun watching it. But you can see what's happening down here. You can see I've got growth happening on the carbon. This is carbon. So that's what the mycorrhizal fungi eats on, or mold. I mean, all of that. It's the same. It's the same type of thing. It's in the same mycelium family. And you can see that this is not where I want it to be. This is all still very alive.
Remind me again the purpose of covering this in plastic and how long you intend on keeping it covered?
I want seeds to germinate. I want the root systems of things to die. I want to try to kill as many pests, what do you call those little seeds, eggs, before they hatch, basically. The eggs that are in the ground from different insects and pests. I'm trying to kill anything that's in there that I don't want, while trying not to kill the things I do want, which would be the mycorrhizal fungi, the tiny little microorganisms.
And how long do you expect this plastic to stay on?
If I had gotten it more wet than I did, like the one we just had, and then it would have been about 2 weeks with the heat. Mm-hmm. It's taking a little longer than I had hoped for because it wasn't as moist as I had wanted it to be. What I could also do though is we could create a very temporary chicken run situation right here with 4 posts, and then I'll put them on top of it right before I'm ready to be done with it.
Let the chickens do the work.
And let the chickens help me with that. But as the temperatures start to cool, this becomes less effective. One of the things I will say, and talking in terms of the season transitions, it's a really, really, really good time of year to do this kind of thing in the season transition part of the year. The season transition to me would be usually about March. It's when we start getting the flooding and the caterpillars eating everything in spring. It's the same in September, October. Every year, and it's funny to me because people will say, I feel like I've seen this happen before this time of year. I'm like, yes. Every year in the springtime and every year in the fall, we're going to have flooding weather on the coast because our seasons are transitioning and our soil is hot and our water is hot. But we've got these fronts coming through, these Arctic movements, these things of winter change coming through. And when those things collide, they make humidity, they make rain, they make weather. Yeah.
Roberta, commenting on your recommendation to watch that Netflix show, says that she just saw a great Netflix show on soil and it was mesmerizing. She thinks it's called Kiss the Ground.
Yes, Kiss the Ground's fantastic. I would also encourage you to read the book because I think the book's even better than the movie. They always say that, but I'm telling you right now, get it on an Audible because I like to listen while I garden. So
Godfather, the movie, is better than the book.
Right, exactly. Where did I put my stuff? So before we walk too far and as we walk to talk to our chickens over here, this is my yearly reminder to save your pumpkins. Whether you're growing them yourself or whether you're buying them to do things for autumn decorations and stuff like that. If you don't have chickens or pigs, find a friend that does because we need your pumpkins for 2 reasons. I feel one of those is 3 reasons. One, they like it. It makes them happy, especially the pigs. Oh, the pigs are my best friends when I give them a pumpkin or a cucumber. And then the second reason for that is that it helps with the worms. I don't even know the science behind it exactly. I could dig into it if I chose to and think about it. Yeah, we'll talk about it on Dinner Table Talks. Talk about that. But there's a science to why pumpkin, just like any other plants have certain types of medicinal powers. All plants have certain types of medicinal powers. Well, one of the things pumpkins can do is help to keep your gut free of worms. So you should probably eat some good pumpkin too. And then the third reason is...
Does it work in pie form?
I don't know. Wine and pie. We're all drinking wine. Aislynn said.
Wine and pie would be a fantastic podcast name.
Okay. So, and then the third reason is, and please don't take any offense to this, but if you eat eggs or if you eat pork, it just tastes better when it's eating a lot of pumpkin. That's one of the best kept secrets about those local pork farmers, is that right before they take the pigs to the slaughterhouse or to the chef to finish the end deal, they feed them a lot of pumpkin and usually some mushrooms and things like that too, to really get them happy and fat and sweet tasting. Yes, they do. So I'm going to throw this over there. They'll figure out what to do with it later on. But please send me yours if you're not going to be using them. Now look down here. That's a zinnia. So one of the things you should be doing right now, it's very important, is planting your flowers. Wildflowers particularly, perennial flowers particularly. I have zillions of zinnias, so I'm not afraid if I plant a bunch of zinnias that end up dying in November, December, January, whenever the first freeze happens. I'm not really concerned about that, so I go ahead and just sprinkle flowers everywhere. But you definitely should be planting your wildflowers right now, because they're going to start setting in. They'll start germinating through the winter time as the soils decrease in temperature, and then they will put their green on, and then by the time February, March, springtime hits, you'll start seeing your wildflowers very fast, and then you'll see them all the way through the summertime. So. All right, we're going to walk up to the front because I want to give you some updates on where I am with planting. I just walked through a fire ant. You're watching this, and I'm going to wipe my feet off from fire ants while we're down here. Is that this is actually, the mushroom is actually like the fruit of the mycelium that is. Okay, so one of the things you'll see that, and I actually didn't quite understand this, but now I do. You've heard me talking about all the road systems and the mapping and all the things that happen with the mycorrhizal fungi underneath the soil. And when I pulled that plastic back this morning, you noticed what I was talking about. It's like stringy, like
it's like
lines.
A network, yeah.
It's a network, just like a website or a web network. It's a network. It's an energy network. It's a transition, right? Well, what I learned is that the mushroom is actually like the fruit of the actual plant that is underground in the soil in this massive network that could go in, I mean, deep, deep, deep. This is one of those things I tell you that you should pull out. The nature, that nightshade type. Okay, so that's what you're doing here, is they're showing their fruit basically. And then of course something might eat them, or their spores would spread around just like their seeds of an apple would spread around, and then it grows some more, and then it sets in a different place and then grows some more fruit in that area. So whenever you see that, there's massive amounts of stuff going on down below the soil. That's what that is. And I just love that I didn't understand that, and now I do. Makes me so happy, because I love the fungi stuff. Has been so changing my whole world. In fact, if I had to explain how I feel about life and death, and how I no longer fear death at all, and no longer fear not living for the rest of eternity at all I have to do is look at fungi, because I know the answer is the fungi is going to eat me. That's what's going to happen. And then I'm going to become a part of the earth again, and I'm going to become a part of the network of the earth again. I just love that. That makes life easier for me. I don't know if it makes life easier for anybody else, but it does for me.
You're handling your firework problem on camera very well, by the way.
Oh, the fire ants?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not been fun. If you look, this isn't the first go with fire ants, clearly. So this is the time when you need to make sure that you're going in and just popping out any of the weeds you don't want, being really careful to lift out things around where you've got other stuff coming up. Now, when you look at that little patch of land, do you know what every little seedling germination is when it's coming up? I don't know what everything is.
You do know what you planted, of course.
But I know what I planted, and I know certain things I know that are weeds. And I learn. I'm pretty good at it. Like, it takes people time to learn. You have to learn, look at what the plant is, because I not only know what the true leaf looks like. So this would be the baby leaves of carrots right here. But I also know, I'm trying to look to see if I can see one that has a true leaf on it already. You can tell in this bed that I did early planting, the experiment that I did to try to give myself an early start, that the soil was a little bit too hot, because when you go down to start looking at some of the other rows, you'll start to see a lot more things coming up. And I actually planted that stuff later than I planted this. So you can kind of see how germinating carrots is a challenge. I like experimenting so that I can see if I can get ahead on it. I'm trying to find a carrot with true leaf on it. And it's crazy that I can't seem to find one. Oh, here's one right here. Here's one right here. Okay, so you see these are the baby leaves of a carrot, and this is the true leaves of the carrot. So once you get, and like I can tell that this is alyssum, sweet alyssum. So when it's little, it comes out looking like tiny, tiny little round leaves like that. And then it starts to stretch out to bigger leaves, and then it starts to grow into these little, and then it'll just get like real spindly with white flowers all over the top of it. And then of course this is a radish. Now I might be confused in radish turnips. I might not know the difference between, I'm standing in them again.
I know that that's a radish.
Yeah, watch out for the fire ants because I was standing on them again. I had to order myself some bog boots again because I waited too long for the season transition to come, and I had holes in all my boots. So now I'm wearing Crocs and getting ant bites all over my feet, and it's not nice. So all of this is, okay, this is some of the stuff I wanted to start talking about in terms of the fall harvest. So first of all, early fall harvests are going to be okra. That's easy. And I tend to be one of those people that don't force myself to eat okra all summer long, because I get the early okra right when it first starts to come out, when I'm all excited because I haven't had okra in a while. And I love okra, so then when it comes back in the fall, then I go ahead and start harvesting it again. I don't pressure myself to eat it and harvest it all summer long because, ugh.
I made some of the best fried okra the other night.
He did make some of the best fried okra, literally, and gluten-free. So, but you can see within here different things that I'm beginning to be able to harvest. You can see this is actually a celosia plant that puts on a really pretty flower, a hot pink flower. I'll show you that in here in just a minute. But one of the things that's important to know is that these are things you can harvest to use in your autumn decorations, especially as they begin to dry out. And you'll see the little flower pod. These are the types of things that you should save the seeds. When you cut down one of these plants in the fall, or it starts to come down in the fall, go ahead and save the little flower so that you can save the seeds, because every celosia from here, I've got it here, I've got it here, I've got it here. I mean, you can just see, and come over here because this is where I was going to say there's a really pretty flower poking up over here. Do you see that right there? That hot pink flower sticking out right there? Can everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
That's the flower that I'm talking about. Every single one of these came from a seed group of dried seeds that I saved when I purchased flowers from a cut flower grower at the farmer's market. Literally, I did not buy that seed. Well, I bought the seed. I bought the flower, and then the seed dried, and then I spread that out, and then that's what I have. And now I have almost what I would consider kind of a food forest developing out here, even if the tree is the okra plant and the celosia flowers and the roselle bushes and stuff like that. Let's go back down a little bit further. And so I'm harvesting, let's see if I can find the best ones from this here. I saw some little ones earlier. But I'm harvesting the smallest of the okra that I can find. And there is, look, like this would be a good example right here.
God, now I want to fry okra again.
Yeah, and your mom asked for some, so I'll be getting her some too. Something like this is a good one because it's still pretty thin. It's that burgundy. I would do that. All the rest of this stuff, a lot of the young ones, because I have so much of them that are not dried out, I'm literally just tossing them. I have land to do that on. They're going to get mowed over. Eventually, we're going to have okra growing everywhere, and we'll let it grow where we want it to, and we'll mow over it where we don't want it to, and that'll just be. But I want things growing on this land because I don't want a big, muddy, mucky, disgusting mess where all the water stands and stuff like that. So this is the roselle I've been talking about, and this is, everyone plant this in the spring next year.
What's the name of it again?
Roselle or edible hibiscus. Sometimes you might see even Jamaican sorrel, but I don't look sorrel up because there's another plant that's sorrel, also called sorrel. So for me, this is the edible hibiscus or the roselle. I believe it's even maybe the Thai roselle, but I planted several different varieties of roselle this year. And it makes fantastic tea, it makes jelly, it makes beautiful flowers that you put in things. There's all kinds of things you can do with it. All of the greens are edible as well, and they're delicious in a salad. I did use these on the bottom of salad for the long lunch club that I did last Wednesday, and along with some longevity spinach, some salad burnet, and some okra leaves as well. You can use the okra leaves. Those are some of the hardy summer green type things, but they have really delicious flavors. This has a really nice tart flavor, and it feels nice. It's not like okra can be a little bit, some people may not like the texture of okra. Some people might not like the texture of longevity spinach, but this is a nice thin texture. Yes.
Sandy says that her roselle hasn't bloomed. I think I may have found the one plant that just won't grow in my dappled sunlight.
It does like a lot of sun. And I will tell you, okay, so that is something to keep in mind. The difference between this and what I was doing in town, I had a lot more shade in town than I do out here.
Yeah, under that big pecan tree.
And mine never looked like this in town. I grew a few flowers, I grew a few roselle calyxes, but I didn't. So find like that spot in the front garden bed where you never put anything because it's too much sun all day long. If you've got anything like that, that's where you'll put your roselle in the spring. Give it a try there. But yeah, it is much more successful in a lot of sun. And what happens is it turns into edible landscape, really. This is a big, beautiful plant that even with a freeze season that we might have, it's gonna have strong enough roots most of the time to withstand that. And then as the temperatures drop again in the spring, it'll just come back out again. So once you get it going and it's really set in and got a really nice bush going on, it'll be a really successful ongoing plant in our region. Now you won't have to turn it over annually. Okay, so some of the things we're also going to be and of course this is harvesting, and I did want to show you this. Let me show you this while I've got you on here. So this is what I'm harvesting right here, is this big calyx. Ants like ants like roselle as much as they like the okra, right? Because they
got a lot of sugar in it.
Harvest the sugar, exactly. So what you're doing here, I'm doing magic right now.
Your magic is horrible.
Okay, so what I'm popping out here is the seed pod that goes in the center, right? So this is the part you don't want. And you could use this in a smoothie. You could feed it to your animals. It won't dry the way you want it to dry to make seeds like this. You need to leave it on. So you would leave something like this on in order for it to become something that you would let dry out. I like dried out just the same as okra. Let it dry on the plant and then harvest it off after it's dried. This part is the part you would boil down to make tea, hibiscus tea juice. You can dry this in your dehydrator. It dries really nicely at 120 in a dehydrator, just not even very many hours. You can't give me that back. And dry it down and put it in jars. And then you can use that the same way. I actually, for the Long Lunch Club, did make a really nice, they call it a Jamaican like Christmas tea. And it's the same thing, and you put in a lot of ginger. It's a very thick drink because this particular plant has pectin in it. So when you go to make jelly out of it, you actually don't have to add pectin, just like with apples and other things. I think pears are kind of that way too. My mom mentioned there's a few things that you don't have to actually use pectin in because they have their own pectin. This is a great example of that. So we're definitely going to make some roselle jelly here in the next few days or the next week or so.
Sounds great.
So that's something to keep in mind. Now, other things we're going to be harvesting now are French breakfast radishes. Look at that.
Oh, put a little butter on those?
Yep, exactly. So I've got those that are starting to come out, and if I look over here, I've got a situation where I need to begin weeding things out. So I'm really going to begin looking for, and then maybe even pulling out some that are just not that big, but that are going to be good for me to use the greens for. You see, and then I'll start doing this. So when I go to the farmer's market on Wednesday, I'll probably have some pretty little radishes. I'm sure that everyone has pretty little radishes this time of year. But I have a lot of fun and interesting ways to grow radishes, to eat radishes. I love radishes. I am a convert to selling people on growing turnips and radishes and cooking them because they're so delicious. See here, I'm harvesting another little pretty okra there. Mm-hmm. And this would be a really nice green leaf that I could throw in smoothie or a salad or some greens. Back up that way. That's some pretty, some more of that celosia I mentioned. I literally just sprinkled those seeds wherever they came up, they grew. So, speaking of okra and smoothies, okra has a lot of zinc in it, and zinc is one of the things that is helping immune systems battle this pandemic that we're dealing with. So more zinc in your system along with all the supplements you're taking is good. My mom has been really into a book called Cured, and she's been following a lot of the techniques about understanding more about the variety of foods and how we eat things, and that minimally 30 plants a day is what we should be ingesting. So if you're not taking supplements, you're probably not ingesting 30 plants a day. And if you're not eating smoothies, you're probably not ingesting 30 plants a day either. But that being said, I do put little pods of the small pods of okra leaves. I don't put a ton of it in because I don't want the flavor to enhance, or I don't really taste it, but it mixed into my nice smoothies. And that helps to add some zinc in, and one of the 30 plants that I'm eating when I do those smoothies. This is another weed that I don't like that I pull out. So this is the time of year to pull the stuff out you don't want when the soil is soft and stuff like that. Talking about harvesting sweet potatoes. I know a lot of people have been talking about harvesting sweet potatoes, but my plants are still alive and my plants look good, and I'm not in a flooding situation where I'm concerned that they're going to get mucky or gross or anything like that. So I'm not going to take my sweet potatoes out until I get a little further into the year, maybe even into December. So maybe like Christmas meals, or maybe even January for that matter. Because as long as the plant is alive, it will continue to keep making potatoes. And so I want to try to keep that plant alive as long as I possibly can. So that's why I'm just leaving that. You can eat the greens of sweet potatoes though, just like spinach. They are fantastic for that. Of course, you can harvest all your basil this time of year, making lots of basil pestos and different things like that. We made basil pesto for the Long Lunch Club. We also used basil in the, what did you make? Panang curry with tromboncino. I'm going to show you that here in just a second.
That's the last step in your curry. After it's all prepared, you throw in some rough chopped basil and let it cook for about 5 more minutes.
And we're going to talk about that on the podcast on Monday, so definitely tune in to hear more about the recipes. But here you can see that I am still harvesting tromboncinos, and these are winterized. So you saw me harvesting the green ones this year. These are the winter ones. And one of the things that I made, in addition to that Panang curry with tromboncino in it, we used a hardened off, winterized tromboncino to make ice cream with. And it was very good. We caramelized it and then threw it in a blender with some coconut milk and some egg yolks and the pumpkin spice deliciousness, and we made some ice cream, sprinkled some honey and some pecans on top of it, and it was quite delicious. So you can see I'm harvesting, still able to harvest some of those nice big pumpkinized ones, but now I'm starting to get some big green ones again. So here's some big green ones that I can go back to using.
Put those side by side. It's got the winterized.
So you can see the difference in color. It'll turn really dark yellow. Like look, even this is different than those two. See? But I can go ahead and harvest these green ones now, and we're using these again for tromboncino for like a zucchini. So that's where you hear the name rompicante, zucchini rompicante. I'm also harvesting watermelons as I'm seeing that the plant dies. And I don't have a ton of experience with watermelons, you guys. I'm just learning about it. So I did pull one off actually it had fallen off, but the stem was still very green and it was not ripe at all. So I'm at least waiting until the plant's completely dead and the stem is dead too before I go ahead and just disconnect them. So I have a couple in the house that are like that. This is a special one. This is a moon and star. You see how it's got those little dots, and then the leaves have little dots on them? That's intentional. That's a seed variety that I got. I believe this year I got them from Territorial Seed Company. They're one of my favorites. But I know that there's something about this, the way it colors. So I'm going to do a little bit of research on it to find out the colors and the ripeness and what that actually means.
Here's a good example of your dried out okra.
Yeah, so those would be the ones that I would take inside and harvest those seeds. And then I've got enough seeds for everyone in on the Gulf Coast to grow okra.
Hey, so before we walk away from this area, I just wanted to talk. I mean, we got 10 inches of rain.
Yes, we
over
did.
the week.
Yes.
And, you know, everything that you talk about is the raised.
Yep.
This is not hugelkultur necessarily, but the raised beds. Did you have a lot of flood problems out in the on the actual growing area?
Nope, not at all. Down in these sections, I had a little bit of water standing. There's still a little bit of holes as you'll find in there inside, but most of those are done now too.
And when you say holes,
you'll find a lot of mycorrhizal fungi in this stuff too. Go ahead. What was that?
I was saying when you said you fixed the holes, you added mulch to them.
Yes, I added mulch to them. So this is what we're doing to the outside. We're adding some mulch to it. We're adding mulch into the footpaths. I have not cleaned up any of this part of the garden, you guys. Where you saw me a minute ago, those two places I showed you, those are the only places that I have cleaned. So anything that's growing in this section was on the dry part of the garden all season. But what we did to create a raised garden that we put in, and remember last week I mentioned we're not putting in a garden every 6 months. We put a garden in a year ago, and then we put another section of garden in 6 months ago, and that's there. And then it keeps growing, and we harvest from that. We continue harvesting from the stuff, and then I go through and clean and plant the new stuff. Whatever time of the year it is that I get to that row to get it cleaned up, that's what I plant. That's the season, that's what gets planted there. So if I've got all my radishes and carrots and turnips already planted, beets already planted, then the next rows I clean get lettuce and herbs and flowers and spinach and all of that kind of stuff on them. And there's still always going to be a companion planting, a mixture. So the way I'm planting right now is that I'm going through and using the larger, either the pellet seed, and that's that pelleted carrot I talk about where they put some stuff around it that makes it into a little dot.
It looks like a nerd candy.
Yes, instead of being a tiny, tiny little seed. I do that for celery, tango, parsley, tango celery. I do that for celery, parsley, lettuce, carrots. Now the beets and the Swiss chard and the turnips and the broccoli and all that kind of stuff, it's got a larger seed that you can actually just kind of broadcast a little bit or just place really easily. Then what I do is I go back over the top of that and I broadcast a fall mix that's got all kinds of beneficial stuff in it. It's got dill, cilantro, alyssum, all different kinds of poppy seeds and flowers and all kinds of flower seeds. And then it also may have some last season carrots, some last season lettuce, some last season stuff that I'm just trying to make those seeds go out. They may not be viable, they may be, who knows. Either way, I'm sprinkling, broadcasting seeds. But I first went in and direct sowed very purposely my pelleted or my larger seeds. Does that make sense to everybody? I think it does. If you have questions, ask me.
You're like Johnny Okra seed.
Yeah, exactly. I am like Johnny Okra seed. No, I'm like Johnny zinnia seed. I'm like Aislynn zinnia seed. How about that? Okay, so I wanted to show you, along with the harvesting, I wanted to show you guys what we've done here. You saw me moving this thing around last week. Since it got moved around last week, these were put on, so it now has wheels. It's a little bit easier to move. In addition to that, it has a rope up here on the front of it. And I can attach this rope, if I need to move it to the other garden, I can attach this to the back of the mule and allow the mule to drag it a little ways for me. You know, slow movement, just kind of drag it along. Now I'm not going to do the dragging with the chickens inside there. So we took the chickens out last night because those ladies, they gave it their all. They were mad as Hades at us for having them out here. They didn't know where they were. They didn't know why they were here. And it was a muddy, disgusting mess. And they were mad. So we took them out last night.
They continued to lay eggs, though.
They did. They laid 4 eggs. One of them they crunched the first night and laid the second one on the ground. Then one day later they didn't. Then the next day they laid 2 again in their nest box. Because they're very, very smart ladies. That's why they got to be the first ones to come.
That's the nesting box there in the background.
And so we're seeing all the different ways that we could say, okay, we'll do it a little differently this way. We'll do this thing a little bit differently. This thing is already coming off.
So we put our old tunnels. These are the tunnels we use at the house in Corpus Christi.
Yeah, so you can see that. And if you look down there, you can see where they were pecking around in that mulch and stuff and cleaning things up.
So you just put that in the row that might have weeds on it. And the chickens do the work for you.
And what they'll do is they'll take out my seeds. They'll take out Bermuda grass. So I'm going to put them back down on this. Even if I've gone through and cleaned it, I'm still going to put my chickens back on it because they're going to get all those seeds from the things that overgrew, that reseeded there, that I don't want there. They're going to get that out, and they're going to get a lot of those roots that I wasn't able to get out of the ground. They can get those out.
They're going to keep your footpaths clean.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So come this way. You'll see that I have setting lots of spider webs, by the way, lots of spider webs. I have setting some more of those watermelons. This is the sun. No, I don't know what this one is. No, I think it is the sun, moon, and stars. So that down there, and then there's another one hanging right there. And if we don't get an early freeze in November, these might produce watermelons. If we freeze, I pull that stuff out, I feed it to my animals. No big deal. One of the places I want to immediately put the girls on is setting their tractor up here. I need to spread this out to cover this muck hole here, but put their tractor here and then run their tunnels down this area here that can be really nice and cleaned up. My lady spider, she lost her web in the storm. So she's gone.
You posted a great picture of her munching on a monarch butterfly.
And that happened right before the storm, and she had a fight with that monarch and lost a lot of her web already. So then when the storm came, she hadn't gotten it secured back, I don't think, as well as it should have been. I'm not sure, she might have lost it anyways, but I'm curious to know. I keep looking for her again. Like, where is she? Where am I gonna walk through her? Ah, you know, because I'm not exactly scared of spiders, but I certainly don't. I would freak out if a spider was crawling on me.
That big one, sure.
Yeah, well, that's not true. Any of the little jumping ones. I do have lots of spiders crawling on me all the time, and I don't stress about it. But they could run up and down this, and you can see things that I'm harvesting here. Of course, it's going to be, this is one of those banana pumpkin things. It's coming out weird, actually. It kind of looks like a banana still, though. But I can harvest the serrano peppers. Let's see. Go this way, but try not to stomp on my rogue, what do you call those things? Zinnias. Rogue zinnias everywhere. Okay, if you look here, harvesting chili pecan peppers. If I didn't have any peppers, I would be harvesting more of those. I leave those for the pests and the beneficials and the grasshoppers and the birds. Everybody that wants to eat off of those can eat off of those. Over here you can see beautiful anaheims. There's just so many anaheims that are setting. I've got watermelons going crazy.
What's
Look.
the white poofy?
It's some kind of mycorrhizal fungi. It's some kind of, it's on that
Looks like someone dropped a cotton ball.
Okra, and then it's growing on it, or squash. I guess that's a squash top. So you can see here, look, there's some carrot coming up again in there. And then this is all just a cover crop of like mustard greens. And this is actually the kind of, see this? Cucamelons, those little like tiny cucumbers. Mexican gherkins, I think they call them sometimes. So this, I'm so excited because I planted this in the spring and I thought I'm never going to ever get to grow those things. And they loved it out here and they've taken over this whole fence. So until the freeze happens, I'm going to have all of these beautiful things growing over here. And then we can walk down. Let me show you this first here, and then we'll walk down that road. But look right here at the watermelons, you guys. More watermelons.
3 more behind you.
Yeah. And see, they're still green and connected. So, you know, I'm just going to try to leave them and see what happens. And then if you go down this aisle, you'll see tomatoes that are growing really good and that are finally starting to set some more flowers now. On this side, all these rows of trellises, there's tomato pop-in. So I'm just watching for tomatoes to start setting on. And if we get an early freeze in November, or if we're expecting one, I'll run out and harvest off all the green tomatoes, and then we'll have a big fried green tomato fest.
Let's throw some okra in there too.
Okay, all right. But you can see here the peppers. Now let's go back that way. This garden's a little challenging. I said Aislynn, an Aislynn approved road to walk down. You can see here cucumbers. Look how pretty these flowers are on here, and they are starting to set again. Some of these are new seeds that germinated, and some of them are old plants that are just doing good again. I keep an eye out for some of the old soggy cucumbers still, because my pigs love those. They are so happy when I come over and feed them that. But you can see how nice and healthy these plants are looking now. So I'm gonna have some cucumbers, and then lots of peppers. Right there, some anaheims. And these are all spring-planted plants. Spring-planted plants that might not make it through freeze season, but they're producing really, really well for me in the early fall. So these are my early fall harvests right here. Look at these poblanos. Tons of basil. You see all that red salvia. The red salvia, you can plant one red salvia plant. I think I planted probably 3 old plants from the other house over here in certain places, and now that's starting to spread everywhere, and the hummingbirds are in love with it.
Excuse me.
Oh yeah. I'm kind of, they're obnoxious. They annoy me.
Every time. Never gets old.
Look at this roselle. I got to get this one cleaned up just so I can get my row back over here. So I'll go in and just cut out all the stems on that side and clean that row up, and then get all those calyxes off, dry them out, make jellies, all the things I talked about earlier. This row's getting really nice and clean and replanted with some stuff even from the nurseries. I'm starting to plant some stuff from the nurseries as well. So I'm harvesting first off of some of these beautiful bells. Look at these bells. I mean, they're just massive.
Yeah, a refrigerator full of belled peppers is fantastic for people that cook at home.
Bells, Anaheims, all doing really well. I'm letting the Giardia keep kind of growing. I'm trying to trim it back and throw all those seeds out and around, especially this time of year. Like I said, put your wildflower seeds out. Trim off all those dead heads over there. Throw them out all around your garden, all around, even if your garden's small. Throw wildflowers all around it this time of year while it's wet like this. This is when you let your kids do the seed bombs, okay? Good time to do that. There's something biting me over here. It doesn't feel good.
It was me, I'm sorry.
This is a hollyhock that I planted. Hollyhocks are biennials. I'm hoping this year it will actually flower. Here's some celery that I planted in the spring that's still coming on. Even if I tasted it the other day and it actually tasted pretty good. The part down here was really fresh. As you got up closer to the leaves, it was a little bit bitter. But one thing I know for sure is that minimally we could use it as dried out, that we could then just throw into
celery powder. Yeah.
Exactly. Lemon balm. I just started putting some things in that I bought from the nursery. I went to Turner's the other day. I put in some lemon balm. I've been putting in a bunch more yarrow. I got some yarrow from Get Growing, and then that's a really good skin medicinal, which is really important if you're a grower like me and all your fingers split and you cut things on yourself all the time. So I do actually use an essential oil called palm yarrow, but plant yarrow. It has a million different reasons of success in your garden.
Can you spell it?
Y-A-R-R-O-W.
Yarrow.
Yarrow. This one's Colorado white, I believe. So it's just a white flower, but it's a medicinal plant. It is great for your animals if you have animals to feed it to. It's also a really good beneficial flower that grows. It likes to be planted this time of year. So, and then here you can see I put in a nursery chamomile just so I have a head start on some things. Parsley from last season. Beautiful, beautiful purple mustard greens that are already starting to harvest early, but you can see as the caterpillars start to come in, they're going to hit this soft leaf stuff first. This salad burnet, but look, it may have more success here because it's got a lot of other things around it, and it's not just a row of mustard greens that would get massacred by some caterpillars or whatever. This is salad burnet. I'm very happy with it. It's almost cool like a cucumber, so you can put it on sandwiches or in salads. It's got a cool flavor to it. Some more plants that I started from the nursery just to give myself a little bit more of that head start. Look how successful my Green Harmony is. This is stuff that's fall harvest. I'm going to start harvesting more and more of that and having that available at markets and all of those types of things. A different type of bell, I'm harvesting from those. Another type of Anaheim. My last season marigolds.
Hey, look.
Basils. Hey, yeah, exactly. I think the rain uncovered those. I'm harvesting my zinnia flowers. As I clean my zinnia flowers, look over there, you can actually see the zinnia flowers now. I cleaned that row back and pulled back all of that obnoxious cucumber weed. Now I think it's possible I might be done with Brussels sprouts this time of year. Maybe, we'll see. I could go in and clean all that stuff out and pull some stuff off of it possibly. There's one over here too that I'm keeping an eye on. But these were planted by seed. You see, oh, those are pretty. See, I could totally harvest those. I made a delicious honey sriracha Brussels sprout the other day. So that was good. Look, I have cabbage from last season that is finally a happy plant. I just left that plant there. That's what happens when you permaculture grow. That's what happens when you grow all season long, when you just constantly be putting seeds in, when you're not going in to just tear everything up. Joe brought some dead, like some flats with just like pots in it that were dead. I mean, for all intents and purposes, you would have looked at it, I would have looked at it, dead. Put those things out there. I hadn't had a chance to get back to them. After 10 inches of rain, one of them was a beautiful moringa plant, and it was already growing this big. One of them was another awesome cabbage plant that was starting to take off. and do really well. And one of them was like, I don't know, a pepper or something that had, a salvia that had reseeded itself.
What's the lesson there? Rain? Water?
The lesson is put your seeds out. The lesson is don't cut all your plants out. The lesson is don't just throw something away because you think it's dead. Or don't just whack something back because you think it's dead. Because you saw after the freeze last season, if you left plants alone, they came back from their root system in surprising ways that you never expected. Like that was what we thought was dead last year. I didn't really think it was dead, but if you looked at it, you would have thought it was dead. Now it's another just full grown, happy. And if I wanted to trim it up and clean it up a little bit and make it, edible landscape beautiful, backyard garden beautiful, but I don't care right now. Look over there, that's a Romanesco. See that huge Romanesco plant? I might get an early Romanesco off of that. I planted that last season. So this is where my chickens are good to go and clean. I want to put them here, and then I can clean along this line over here as well. And we're just using those tunnels. And Joe bought some more materials to use those tunnels again and give me like some 90-degree turns and longer so that they can cover the whole row in one session of where the tractor is located at. So, all right, I am starting something a little bit new. Actually, I've started all kinds of new things, although it's not super new because I've been talking to you guys about a lot of it. But I'm going to be sending out an email on Monday mornings. That's just going to be kind of a weekly update. And what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to create a small little video clip that gives you the updates that I wouldn't often do in here in the live, so that I'm not spending a lot of time in my live doing that. Instead, it's going to go in my email and it'll go out on my social media like a traditional content YouTube video. And it'll just be my weekly report. Things that I want to make sure everybody knows to do about weeding and seeding, things like that. And then, of course, anything that's coming up with my agenda, my event calendar for my business, anything fun coming up on the podcast. I'm going to send those emails out. They're going to start going out on Monday mornings. And if I don't already have your email address because you've purchased something from me like on PayPal or we've worked together recently in the past, then I won't have your email on my list. So please DM me if you want to be on that list and send me your email address, and I'll put your name on that list. I know emails are not the way anymore, but we live in a world right now where people are all trying to find the best way that they can connect in a way that makes them feel the most comfortable. And so creating an email gives another part of the audience who maybe isn't as interested in Facebook
they're not TikToking yet.
They're not TikToking or something like that I can go ahead and put that in there and make sure that they know every Monday morning they're going to get some update from me about what's going on in the garden and things that are coming up in terms of not just paid events like farm to table dinners and farm to table luncheons and my new class. I know Sandy's coming to it. That'll be coming up, but seed swaps and all the things that Joe and I have going on that we want to invite the public to be a part of. So we will be putting that stuff up, and of course, Monday morning is when the podcast launches every week.
Yeah, you go on a little bit of a tirade.
I do? Oh, y'all.
Oh no. I thought we were going inside.
Watch this one. Listen to this one, because I go after Home Depot. And I want to know if Home Depot actually cares about their customers. And it has a lot to do with affordable access to health and wellness. Bye. I love you guys.